Imagine waking up every morning for 41 years in a cell that you didn't deserve. 41 years of watching the seasons change through the bars. 41 years stolen because someone in power decided that your truth didn't matter. This is the story of James Watson. In 1982, the state of Massachusetts took his freedom, not because he was guilty, but because a police department and a district attorney's office decided to lie. They wanted him executed. The only thing standing between James and the death chamber was you, the voters of Massachusetts, who, by the narrowest margin, abolished the death penalty that same year. So they locked him away instead and threw away the key. But this story doesn't stop with James, because while he was trapped inside, his young son, Don Juan Moses, was left vulnerable. And the system that destroyed his father came for him as well. What happened to Don Juan behind those walls was nothing short of torture. This is not ancient history. James was exonerated in 2022, 41 years too late, 46 years after this nightmare began. Today, you'll hear the truth from a father and son whose lives were shattered by a corrupt, racist system, a system that still operates in the shadows, a system that could take your life tomorrow if we let it. James and Don, welcome. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I appreciate you sharing your story. I would love for James, if you could start by sharing your story. Can you tell the audience, you were a 19-year-old young person. What happened? How did this nightmare begin?
Well, it began by the police knocking on my door, asking if we looking for somebody, if anybody had heard or seen anything. 4 o'clock in the morning, which resulted in a man being shot to death outside in Rossendale housing project. And we lived on the first floor. And if I come on my building and step off my steps and walk to the sidewalk, I can turn to my left and I can see where the incident happened. Like probably, I don't know, no more than 10, 12 feet away from my steps. So they asked us, they asked us, me and my son, Don, and his mother, if they, we heard anything. And I said, no, they didn't hear anything. I asked her, did you hear anything? I said, no, because 4 o'clock in the morning, we sleep. We sleep hard. So we said no, and they left, and they came back again. Next day, they wanted to see me down the station. Went down the station, they questioned me, told me the same thing. They let me go. Then the next time they came back again on a Saturday, and asked me to come down to the station. And this time it was a little more aggressive than it was first time. They asked if you heard it or see it. Then they started asking questions, what went wrong? And I'm saying, what you mean what went wrong? There was a homicide and there was a robbery. I said, man, I don't know what you're talking about, what went wrong? I just said I wasn't present at whatever happened out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they didn't believe me or didn't care to believe me. And the result of that, they let me go. And then Sunday, they had me back down the station. Same question. Same answers. I don't know what you're talking about. I was not there. They didn't hear nothing or see nothing. Neither none of my family or nobody. We didn't see nothing. And then they asked me, I said, well, stop playing the game, get a polygraph or something, because, you're wasting my time. He called me down here. They said, well, you want to take a polygraph? I said, yeah, whatever, whatever you want to do. They ain't got nothing to hide. I didn't do anything wrong. And they said, okay, we'll pick you up Monday at 1 o'clock. Okay, cool. You know where I live. You've been there enough times, right? So I'll see you at 1. 1 o'clock came around, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, no show. So we decided to go car shopping. I had my son. I had a little brother, Robert, and his sister. But I had his mother and his sister, right? And we all got into the car. We're getting into the car. And as we get into the car, around 6 o'clock, that's when I heard a voice behind me, behind me saying, Mr. Watson. I said, because nobody called me by my last name. And so I turned around and to Detective Burlow. And Burlow turned around, I said, would you like to come down? Would you like to come down to the station? I said, what happened to you at 1 o'clock for the polygraph? Just something came up. I said, well, something came up. I'm fixing to go put stuff on layaway for Christmas. He said, nah. So I come down there later. He said, no, I need you down there now. So now I'm feeling like I'm in custody. He said, now. So if I refuse, the next step is probably, they want to arrest me or whatever. So I want to go all through that because I have my kid with me and everything. So let's go. I just told them to follow me down to the station. The father, the uncle of, the grandfather of my son, Bo Pete.
And you, okay.
And he drove. I said, just follow me down to the station. So I got into the car with them, which was a black '67 Chevy, and with a red interior. And there's a man sitting in the front seat, which I did not recognize until we got to the station. It was the owner of the cab company, James Quinn.
And you did mention that the person who was murdered, you were being accused of,
was a cab driver.
Was a cab driver.
Yes, was a cab driver.
And so he was the owner of the cab driver, of the cab company.
Yeah, he was the owner of the cab company. James Quinn was the owner.
Okay.
He had a fleet of cabs. He was a self-made millionaire, so to speak. But anyway, so I don't know what kind of dirty dealings they did, but they're together. But went down the station, went in there and talked. Everybody came in to the station, had me in the office, and sit me in the chair, and we talking. Then he went back to the story. What went wrong? I said, man, I'm not gonna play this game. I want to take a polygraph. There we go. We're not going to do this again. I'm not repeating myself. And as we was talking, I happened to, because Detective Burlow was sitting right across from me. He was at his desk, and I was sitting at the other end of the desk, facing him. And I looked, I looked down. There's an empty trash barrel beside me with looked like a .38 revolver laid on the side. No garbage in the can, just mud, like somebody had poured coffee in there or something. It gets all black. Looked laying on the side. But the pistol wasn't dirty, laying on the side. Look. I said, okay, I see what this is. It's not happening. I'm not going to grab the gun. So the other officer, Paul Carroll, who's at the other end of the office in the station, right, which was standing up at the time, would probably have shot me, killed me. Because I think that was the plan, but I didn't go for it.
Interesting.
So they got even more frustrated. And he said, you've been identified. I said, been identified by who? Man, ain't nobody identified me. He said, you've been identified and you're under arrest for the murder of a cab driver, Jeffrey Walker. Yeah, I said, well, okay, do what you got to do. But I didn't kill nobody, and I didn't rob nobody. So they cuffed me up, But at that moment, my family was outside the door. My son, his mother, right, her mother, her sister, and her brother. I'm saying, So you was actually going to shoot me in the station, with my people right outside the door.
So you think that was the plan?
That was the plan.
And how old was Don at the time?
Don was 13 months.
13 months. Did you go back home? At any point did you go back home?
That day, Monday?
That day?
No, they locked me up.
from that day on, at the age of 20.
That night, they locked me up. From that night, around 6:30. Yeah, around 6:30. Yeah, they locked me up. I couldn't leave. Put me in a cage in the office. They had a little box cage where you go in there, lock the door. There's a chair in there with a little screen door, no glass. So I'm sitting in there, mad as can be. You know what I mean? Then all of a sudden, here comes Regina, which is my son's mother's sister. And they opened the door and let her come in and lock the door.
Just the two of you.
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm supposed to be in custody as a prisoner for murder, but you gonna put a civilian, lock a civilian in there with me? We got into the relationship, you know what I mean? Which was no relationship. She was just a sister, you know what I mean, of my son's mother.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And you locked her in a room with me.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? She's crying. I'm trying to hold her, and there's only one chair, so she sat on my lap. She's crying. I'm trying to console her. Daddy's gonna be all right. You know what I mean? And then after that, they about 5, 6, 7 minutes. You know what I mean? They opened the door and let her out.
Interesting. And so at the age of 20, you go there for a polygraph. There's no polygraph. You are arrested. And you spend the next 40 plus years in prison. How many trials did you have? And what? So you had 2 separate independent trials, both found guilty.
Both. One in 81 and one in 83.
The
overturned it on the technicality of the judge's instructions to the jury. He refused to answer the question. You know what I mean? And they said they did not prove that if I was a knowing or willing participant in the crime. Now here's another segment. If I was a knowing or willing participant in the crime, but you said I committed the crime. But now you want to say if I was a known or willing participant, if my co-defendant was in possession of a firearm. So says he refused, the Judge Irwin refused to give that instruction to the jury. They said that you can't do that in a felony murder case. So they overturned it because they violated my rights. Then I get a fair trial.
And at what point were you indicted at what point did the district attorney ask that the death penalty, that you be indicted under the death penalty?
Yes. In the first trial, I went to trial. I went to start trial. I went to my arraignment for the murder from Charles Street Jail County. And Judge Irwin and O'Neill, we was being arraigned, and I was cuffed to 2 other people. So they arraigned, when he got to me, Commonwealth, which is O'Neill, District Attorney O'Neill, who asked Judge Irwin to indict me under the death penalty statute due to the nature of the crime and the underlying felony, which is the armed robbery, which resulted in a murder, felony, the commission of a crime. And he asked the judge, I'd like to indict him under the death penalty, Your Honor. And the judge on there said, looked at me, put his glasses down over his nose, and said, yes.
Now, we know 40 years later, by the help of the New England Innocent Project, that same district attorney lied.
Yes, he withheld documents.
Used hypnotism,
hypnosis on
hypnosis.
Eyewitness, which he said he didn't do, but we found out he did.
Okay.
Right, which was Neil Sweat, and he hypnotized another cab driver who said he claimed he saw me get into the car downtown Boston at 4 a.m. I'm saying, you know what I mean, which was impossible.
So we know that your release in exoneration resulted as a result of information that was in the district attorney's file that clearly indicated that he lied. He withheld information.
Correct.
And he asked someone to lie, and that person said no.
Yes. He asked a specialist on hypnosis, right, to argue because he wanted to use the witness's statement. And the individual declined, said, I can't do that. So we didn't know that, you know what I mean, because he couldn't do that. But he tried, and he said no. But all his notes, the notes that he had, he didn't throw them away.
So he implicated himself by leaving that information in.
Left that information in the file, and we found it.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, you didn't fit the description.
Neither did my co-defendant. It was me and the 16-year-old,
The 16 who spent 40 years in jail.
38 years, Frederick Clay.
Okay. And at some point, it would be nice to have him. And Don, I want to get to you in a minute, but I guess the point that I'm making is that the district attorney who asked for the death penalty knew you did not fit the description and that there was other evidence pointing to the fact that they had the wrong person.
Correct.
But he still asked for the death penalty.
So they asked for the death
and
penalty.
the judge approved it.
Right. Yeah, he knew I did fit the picture, so did the detectives. But they didn't want to do no investigation, plus they was bigots or racists, and they didn't really care. They just wanted to get somebody, they didn't want to do their job. Since I was black, poor from the projects, struggling, to support my son, because I was, off and on with jobs.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So you're the sacrificial lamb.
That's right, correct. You got
Now, Don, I appreciate your patience.
For thanks for the interruption, could you move your necklace? We could just hear it brushing against the mic. Yes. Yeah. Works. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Okay. Don, when your father was arrested at the age of 20, you were just a toddler. You were just young. At what point did you realize that your dad was not there?
I noticed all the time. I come from a big household. There's one of 8 of us. And 4 girls, 4 boys. So watching my brothers and sisters, they have separate fathers than me. So watching them come and pick them up and leave with them, I was curious. I had questions, but I couldn't ask my mom because she had resentful vendetta with my dad. So it was like a torture camp.
What do you mean it was like a torture camp?
You get struck in, you get cursed at, slapped. I got stitches here just for putting lotion on like him. I don't even know what that was. I never even seen him put lotion on before. He got free. So it was a torture camp. And like my dad's only sister showed me memories of her bringing me up to see him once before I turned 18. And that was a birthday present to myself at 18, was to take 2 buses from the urban area to the prison to see him for the whole entire visit. So I stayed there for over 8 hours.
Wow.
So I could take the last bus back home.
At 18?
At 18.
Do you remember seeing your dad? Well, so I'm thinking about the effort to maintain a relationship between the two of you. Jerm, were you able to maintain some semblance of a relationship with your son?
No, not for a long time. Not for a long time. I tried, but my sister didn't know what was going on or where they had him or what was going on.
Okay.
So how I came across the foster care, I don't know I don't know who hooked me up. I don't know if it was Joanne or I don't know how I got hooked up with him, but but he was in the foster.
You found out that he was in the foster care system.
Yeah, yes, and it was in Roxbury. Yeah.
Okay.
And I found out touch base about find out where he at, the foster care at, and see if I could give Richard a call, and talk to him. And I forget the woman's name though.
It was Brian.
Yeah, it was a nice woman, and she let me call. I talked to her one time, and then I said, well, when the next time I could talk to him? And she gave me a date. Called him on Wednesday, like at 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
They have their lunch. Then I said, cool. That's what I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don, how would you describe the impact of your dad's incarceration on your life?
We both went to prison, just in different terminologies. When they took my dad away, they took my shield away, so I had no protection besides my grandparents and God, but it took on later on in life for me to get that more embedded and more understood. But yeah, angry and raged after watching what the the justice system did to the urban area where I lived at the time for the Charles Stewart case, where they ran into the projects and beat every African-American man just because of a lie that a man told because he owed money to the mob, and we paid for it. And then for them to apologize to us, they gave us Ben and Jerry ice cream, and that wasn't acceptable. So we never seen the justice system as more than what it is. First words mean everything. Criminals running the justice system.
Well, I can certainly see how you could say that, because 70% of the people who are exonerated because of prosecutorial or police misconduct.
But I feel we shouldn't be guilty because of our color.
Absolutely not.
Our color should not make us guilty. Like, I'm going through a similarity situation, but with 2 babies this time, a daughter and son, and it all run off factor of being guilty for being black in a state where all I do is generate love to the people I care for, being in the nursing field. So I shouldn't feel like I got 2 strikes already where I never been to jail, only besides to go see my dad. But that's where we stand right now. Haven't touched my children since 2019. So it's 2025, and I feel like 30 minutes every 7 days is inhumane for a father who was there since birth.
So it sounds like the trauma of you losing your dad was significant. As you state, your shield was gone. There was no one to protect you from a system that is notorious.
No,
Show up.
it wasn't. Yeah, it's the system, but those that you thought you could find as adults. Most of the adults in my time of me growing up was still living like they was in the 70s. Like, things Dad told me as we got older and he was free and we talked about, same thing I witnessed on my own. Like, it was a continuous party from the 70s to when I was growing up. All the adults was on different drugs or alcohol, my aunt, my uncles, so there was no one to confide in. And my older brother had to grow up fast and raise himself in the street, became a gang leader at the age of 17 and got shot and killed. So losing your brother at 15, that was my role model, but in a certain factor where he was big brother, dad figure, besides others, my uncle, my grandpa, but that's devastation.
Absolutely. It absolutely is devastation. And James, my question to you, did you ever give up hope? Did you ever think you would not experience freedom again?
Yes. Crosses your mind after sitting in prison 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You know, the light gets kind of dim. You know, and with the 25 years, I was saying, wow, this like it might be it. You know, like I'm probably dying. You know,
What happened? What happened that kind of, I visualize a dark room with just like a pinch of light coming through. What was that like pinch of light for you? The hope, the impetus for you for turning things around, and you've been able to get out.
Well, wasn't really hope. What turning me around is I missed my son. You know, man, only son on the planet. You know, I never been a dad before. You know, man, I was happy as could be. You know, and then all of a sudden it was just shattered within instant, gone. You know, like, wow, this really happened. You know. It was what.
Now, I know, during this, preparing for this interview, I spoke with one of your teachers, high school teachers, who stood by you throughout the whole entire 40 years, right?
She was there. She had to leave state, though. She went, to a home state. Yes, whoever it was to. Not a home state, but she went, me.
But she moved out of state, but
yes.
Maintained contact.
Oh, yes. I could call and talk.
How does this whole situation leave you? Are you angry? Are you filled with rage? Like,
No,
not only what happened to you, but the system left your son vulnerable.
Yes.
Well,
and there was nothing I can actually do. I was behind a 27-inch wall, 27-foot wall. You know what I mean? So, there's nothing I could do.
Right.
There's nothing I could do. Much as I wanted to do a whole lot, couldn't do it from there.
Yep.
Because there you have no control in there.
What, and the question is for both of you, what is it that helped you maintain your sanity to such horrendous, I can't even...
Stay busy. Stay busy. There's nothing else you can do. Because after a while, you dwell on it until, they'll just eat you up inside. So you had to do something, just get active. So I worked out, kept a job, worked in an MLK, mainline kitchen. I worked industries, I like paint, carpentry work. So I got into that field. And while I was there, when I first got there, I joined a group called Revamp, which turned into be Second Thoughts, where we work with young men, 13 and up, they come up to the prison and we talk and try to keep them coming into prison.
Okay.
And then, that was hard. Yeah, the whole scenario affected my ability to really be a good counselor, But I got it together, because a kid asks you, did you do it? And, when I hit there to lie to him, So I'm saying, when I lied to him, say, I didn't do this. And then he'll say, wow, well, you didn't do that. So I can go out there and get arrested and don't do nothing and still come in here, And I don't want to start thinking like that. Then they think there's no hope. So I, as I said, well, my case ain't really relevant to what's going on with you.
You didn't tell them, you didn't tell the young people that you were innocent because it would be too confusing for them to understand that. Right. Although you claim you're innocent, you're still sitting in Norfolk Correctional Institution for life without the possibility of parole.
And they're too impressible right now because they're already in the jail.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with kids that were locked up, Judge Conley's kid, DYS, and we worked with kids from Milton, Marlboro, Middleborough, and they weren't locked up. They were like, from school. Okay. But they was 12 and 13 years old committing adult crimes.
Wow.
Go ahead.
And Don, what helped you to maintain your sanity? I know that you experienced a tremendous amount of abuse. I know that you work in a profession that requires a lot of nurturing, that you nurture people.
Yes. Grandparents and God, that was my team. They taught me about God, and they showed me ultimate love from each other to me and my siblings. When my mother couldn't do it, they came over and tried to redirect her, reset the household, let her be more of an adult and a mother figure for us. But it only lasted so long. That's why I said we was in the system a lot. So that was our norm. And they was just everything. Their love was amazing. I love like them. That's what kept me. They taught me a lot that I kept, that got me prepared for adulthood. The things he told and showed me. Hopefully the faith is love, love is God. And I stayed there forever.
Okay.
So
I'm wondering if your mother's treatment towards you was somehow connected to the fact that she perjured herself and she testified falsely, which resulted in, played a major role in your father being convicted.
Well, like I said, she resent what I look like, everything. She always used to tell me I'm an ugly bastard. I look like my father. I ain't gonna be nothing. I'm gonna be a cellmate. Try to bring out the rage in me all the time. And I'm like, I don't know what she's talking about. I'm like, what are you talking about? I never got a chance to meet the man you're talking about. Well, you got me in this shadow. And it's just that right there made me more curious. And I had to prove her wrong. That I'm already in prison, even though I'm not behind a cell. You know, so I was dealing with a different system in a different cell. You know, a lot of things hurt much as physical as much as they do mental. So with my dad's mom and my mom's mom and her second marriage husband, they saved my life. They saved my life.
And I think it's important for our listeners to know that there are people who can play a significant role in your life. They don't have to be relatives.
No,
They just have to care.
That's all it was.
And I'm wondering, like, through this abuse, she went to school. Like, did anyone recognize that you were being traumatized and came to your aid other than your grandparents?
No, life started fast for me. I had to be 21 at 12. And I mean that. I was 21 at 12. I had to get my first job. I was very tall. I was very up on knowledge because of the elders. So I was able to get a job at a local restaurant down the street part-time, and I worked for the newspaper on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So I just I got tired of my mom bringing home different men to the point where she'd get passed out and the guys try to molest my sisters, to the point where I see hurt people. That's how I feel the reflection of what happened to me with my sister took the dive. And to this day, I would think she even retrieved or got help like she's supposed to, because she molested me when I was a kid. And then we get older, her daughter's being molested. We talk about my situation and she says, I need to just get over it. It happened. Get over it. We was kids. I'm like, wow. But for me to find peace, I forgave. It's a gift Grandpa gave me. For me to receive something, I had to give up something. So I gave up pain and bitter. And learn how to love from a distance. And I always pray for them.
Okay, that's wonderful. What do you want, Jan? This is a question for both of you, actually. What do you say to the people who are in leadership positions about wrongful conviction and the collateral damage and the lack of responsibility? Like, the prosecutor never was held responsible for lying and all the criminal things that he did that resulted in you being in jail for 41 years. No one was ever held accountable for that.
Nope. Or for the individuals that actually committed the crime and left that young man dead out there, by a dumpster. The family has got no closure because now it's a cold case. So nobody been brought to justice for that crime.
And I think it's important for the listeners to know that the young man who was murdered, his family, after speaking to your investigator and looking at all the facts, after you were in jail for 40 plus years, realized that, oh, wow, this is not the person who killed my brother. And so they helped you gain your freedom.
Yes, they did. They wrote a letter to the court, and I had other people write letters to the court asking for my release.
Yeah, I remember.
Just
forever.
Yeah,
Greatest investigator ever. Yeah.
He
came out, spoke to me for 2.5 hours, man. Really? And talked to me in his Starbucks, asking questions that it felt like he was suffocating to breathe the answer. But he understood, gave me a minute to breathe. And he took my affidavit back from that. And I didn't know what it was going to do. I didn't know it was part of the key that was going to open the door for him to get home. It was right. We're grateful. We're grateful for it all.
I had quite a few letters. From my teacher, she wrote a letter. People that knew me from the neighborhood wrote letters. Peggy Range wrote a letter. Deborah wrote a letter. And it was.
So the support.
There was quite a few letters.
Your support also included a team of lawyers who were hired by the New England Innocent Project. So we really want to acknowledge the New England Innocent Project, John Nazi, and you can speak more to this, but also Rachel Rollins. Because if it were not for Rachel Rawlins creating that integrity bureau,
Yes.
no one would have taken another look at your case. You would be sitting in jail right now.
Right. Well, no, that's not the truth, because the team that I had were looking into my case. There was no way around it. You know what I mean? We had the documents. You know what I mean? We had the documents. You know what I mean? And the integrity unit that was developed after the fact, you know what I mean, got involved. But they didn't get involved until John Nazi, Maddie Ratchet, Barbara Monroe, Jill, you know what I mean? They all got in there. Kristen Dane, you know what I mean? Molly,
Your team. New England Innocent Project team.
Yeah, they got involved until I sent them a letter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I was reluctant to send them a letter because I got messed up twice, 2 trials. So I had a feeling about lawyers, but, you know, man, a couple of brothers just talked to me while we walked the field and said, you should give him a shot, man. You know what I mean? I said, well, you know what I mean? Okay, I'll give him a shot. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't fail again on seeking a new trial, because all my people started passing away. My father, my brother, my grandfather, my uncle, my cousin, my aunt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They just started disappearing off the face of the earth. And I'm like, wow, you know, like, who's next? And I couldn't tell you. Then my sister passed away, you know what I mean, who was coming to see me, you know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, it was something. I couldn't even get to see her. I could have talked to her before she died, but the institution was such a out of whack, that the caseworker refused to let me make a phone call. Said I had to talk to Sherry Elliott, who was the director of treatment at the time.
And this was after you received a call saying that your sister could go at any moment.
Right, and I told them when the time comes, call me, and so I could talk to her before she leaves this planet. They said, okay, so they called. I went next door to 1-2. I was in 1-3. They asked to make the phone call, and he said, I got to check with Sherry Elliott. I said, why you got to check with somebody when this is an emergency call? That's not the protocol. So he was racist and bigot. You know what I mean? I said, my sister's dying of cancer. I got a chance to speak to her. You know what I mean? Because everybody was at her bedside. They brought her bed from the hospital to Somerville. Everybody was there. My son was there.
Yeah, she held my daughter.
She held Olivia, his daughter, my granddaughter. It was, you know what I mean? And so everybody was there. All the love was there. You know what I mean? And I could have talked to her, but he threw me so many loops. You know what I mean? I told him, I said, she's dying of cancer. I need to talk to her right now before she leaves the planet. He told me, he said, I'm not a doctor. I said, yeah. Now, at that point, I could have, the rage was so hard in my heart. I don't know how I did it, but I walked out the office.
Okay.
You know.
Question.
Okay.
What do you think your case was an isolated case? Are there many people?
Many. I mean, as we speak, somebody's being railroaded. You know, like by the Boston police, the district attorney's office, you know, the judicial system. It was supposed to be there to uphold the law, to provide and protect the citizens of the United States, which is not being done.
Okay.
You know, that goes for a long, long time. It's been going on for years.
But it's a small blunt now, and they just more abuse of power, position. There's something crazy about how they can write down something I can write down on paper, but theirs had more power because of their position they have in power.
Yeah.
That incriminates me, where my documentation for my kids is so damning that I feel like everybody's in bed together, that it's hard to find a lawyer for my kids. Since 2019 of last time, going against a corrupt system, you know, I got struck by a bailiff just for going back into a courthouse to report why I seen a violation on the judge of my case. And that got thrown out immediately. Never got seen daylight, but it just told me where I was not welcome.
Okay. that's really unfortunate, and I'm sorry that you had to experience that. I know that you will continue fighting.
Always. That's me. Campaign for our success.
You know, before we switch gears a little, I'm curious about the fact that the district attorney left the information in the file that incriminated him, which sort of leads me to believe that that behavior of corrupt officials might have been just a commonplace, and so he didn't feel the need to take out anything that might incriminate him because maybe he never thought anyone would even bother.
They just thought they were that much untouchable. Same thing with the people I deal with in the state of Maine. They incriminate themselves. If you read the first 5 pages, that damning. Is that damning? It tells itself. That's how bluntly in abusive power is being used right now at this hour. I just thank God that I made it from the city, and I was just experiencing it and traveling. I was always interested with what was out there, and I just kept moving. But the more I moved, the more I seen, the more I learned, and I'm glad I did. I became a father of 2 children, so it just shows, they ain't sorry for what they done. They're sorry they got caught.
Well,
But the super way they're sorry they got caught because they still got their jobs.
I know, but
Well, those who are not deceased.
but who you represent at the time of the crime that you are committing is who should pay the piper and the price for what you've done. If I had a uniform for the police station, for the Boston Police, and I was a Boston police officer, who's going to be accountable for me? It should be the Boston Police Department, because that's who I work for. I'm carrying them on my badge every time I go to do my...
You get a call. You just don't.
okay. We don't have a lot of time left. However, what do you say? What would you like the general public to know about your experience that they might not know? Like, what is, like, do you have an ask? And I'm thinking about this because I know that there are men and women on a daily basis who are now getting their freedom because of wrongful conviction.
Oh, yes, there's been a whole lot of men
And women.
and women coming out proving that they was wrongly convicted of a crime they did not commit. Man, in the prison that I was in, MCI Norfolk, a lot of guys that I lived in with the unit that I lived in, they're out. They've come out, and they're still coming out.
Wrongly accused or over sentenced.
Yes.
Or over sentenced.
They over sentenced. When they started giving guys life without parole, they started giving it. It got so bad, they started giving it doing it to our kids. And to the courts and the legislators realized you cannot give take a child, put him in prison for the rest of his life without the possibility of parole. First degree murder.
And so they changed that rule.
And they changed that rule in their law. Now you cannot convict a juvenile to natural life in prison.
And I'm glad that that law changed.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a question. What have you been doing since you've been home?
Just been surviving, trying to still recover. I try to stay busy, and I got together, I met my fiance, you, and this element, and we got together and we formed an organization called Confronting Injustice, where we support and help litigate, when necessary, guys that are incarcerated, men and women, who are fighting to get out and have no support or don't have a lot of support, or influence. So we get involved, and we try to do everything in our power. Get that help, direct them to where they can get their ID, Massachusetts ID, what they need it real badly now, thanks to, ICE that's now been put down on top of us also, but, we help them put around there and, reintegrate into society, let them know they're not alone, they got support.
All right. I was moved by a group of men coming together to come up with money to bury one of your brothers who died. Is that something? I was just moved by that because
Yes, because he went to prison. You know, man, and he did a number of years, and he was sick when he came in.
okay,
And he battled it. He didn't ask for nothing. He handled it on his own. He had support inside the joint from other cons, you know, man. And he was a musician, real good musician. You know, he played the guitar, bass guitar. He even played the drums. You know, like.
an admirable
Yeah.
gesture
David
on the part of
Patrick, you know, man, and you know, man, because he was in the band, you know, man, with my other brothers had an out who were wrongly convicted, you know, man, Shorty Mac, AK for Hamilton, Bear Pole, you know, man, Robert Aldrich, you know, man,
people who've been exonerated.
exonerate, yes, and they're flowing out, you know, man. Then when they come out, we try to support them, like I supported my brothers that just come out. You know, let them know we're here. You know, it's going to be a little struggle, you know what I mean? But you're not alone. So never think that, you know, because now we are a new community out here.
Okay. So closing words, Don.
It's still surreal. Yeah. This feeling is as surreal as me still seeing something so great like my children being in front of me and taken away like my dad as well. And him getting free gives me hope. You know what I mean? I'll fight for love before I stand for hate. So it gives me hope. You know, I just got to wait my turn and trust the process, stay loving. Don't let the system change you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Just wait it out. That's all that I do. Time, you can't bury the truth. So I just have to just stay moving forward.
Hey. Well, thank you. I'm James. Closing words.
Close word to fight. Don't give up. Don't say stop. Don't stay silent. Speak up. You know what I mean? If you can't talk to you, if you can't even talk to your parents or anybody, talk to somebody. You know what I mean? You got the churches, you know what I mean? There's people out there like myself, my son, you, Linda Solomon, you know what I mean? Confronting Justice, the New England Innocent Project, you know what I mean? We got Sean Ellis, we got, it's, you know, we got Rada, we got a whole lot of people out here that, Christian Day, we're out here to help you and support you. Do not ever give up. Don't ever think you out here alone, because you're not. This planet is full of people with different positions, right? And there's people on this planet that do care.
Okay. So we want to thank you for joining Confronting Injustice. These stories are important because every life matters, every voice matters. And we want, if we don't share these stories, then people would know, right? Most people don't know that exonerations are more and more common, which means mistakes were made and they need to be revisited. And people who were innocent, who were in jail, James, I agree. Hold on. Keep talking, keep fighting.
Yes. You know, reach out. Reach out. You know what I mean? Because you believe me, you will not be rejected. You know what I mean? Doing that Edison Project, confronting injustice. You know what I mean? You will not. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys out here, a young man out here, like Foxwoods. You know what I mean? He's tremendous.
Yeah,
He works hand on hand. He will not let you down. He's got a few guys out. He got a few guys out. Quite a few guys out. You know what I mean?
Okay, I think that's a good note to end.
Yeah.
You've gained your freedom and you're helping other people to gain theirs. It's not about you get out and now you can relax. And this is about helping others.
Yes, this is an ongoing battle. This doesn't end here in this room, in this conference. It's an ongoing battle. You know what I mean? And if you don't fight, and I'm talking to the parents, the cousins, uncles, and grandma, if you don't fight, it could happen to yours.
Yep. Stand for something or fall for anything.
Yes, it could happen to yours.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for viewing. We look forward to sharing another story with you in our next episode.